I don't remember becoming this person, which is strange because I'm the only one who could have. There was no moment where I noticed the shift, no ceremony, no clear line between who I was and who I am now. If there was a version of me that crossed that boundary, they didn't leave a note. They didn't turn around and say, "This is where it changes." I just woke up here. And that's the unsettling part. Not that I changed, but that I don't remember agreeing to it. At some point, this became the way I think, the way I move through the day, the way I respond to the world. And it all feels continuous, like a single unbroken line. But it doesn't feel familiar. It's like inheriting a life that looks exactly like yours, but doesn't quite belong to you. I answer emails that feel like they were written by someone else. I hold opinions I don't remember forming. I react to things with instincts that feel practiced but not learned, as if I stepped into a role already in progress and everyone else assumed I'd been here the whole time. And the strange thing is, no one questions it. The world doesn't pause and ask if you recognize yourself. It just keeps responding to the version of you that shows up. And eventually, you start responding back. Not because you're certain, but because the conversation never stops. And maybe that's what becoming someone actually is. Not a moment of clarity, not a decision, just erosion. Little pieces of who you were wearing away so gradually that you never notice what's missing, only that something feels quieter than it used to. I think we expect identity to feel solid, to feel earned, but most of the time it feels more like continuity without recognition. Like a long take in a film where the character changes but the camera never cuts, and you're left wondering when it happened. Because if I'm honest, I don't feel like I became this person. I feel like I survived into them. And that's the part we don't talk about enough. This is Cruz, and this week's episode is called The Amnesia of Identity. I think we tell ourselves a comforting story about identity, that we move forward, that we grow, that each version of us neatly replaces the last. But the longer I sit with it, the less that feels true. It feels more accurate to say that we don't become who we are, we remain after everything else falls away. Every choice leaves something behind. Every path taken quietly collapses a dozen others. And those other versions of us don't disappear. They don't get closure. They don't get to finish their sentences. They just stop being possible. And what's left is us. Not as a culmination, but as an aftermath. I think that's why identity can feel so heavy without feeling dramatic. Why it sometimes feels like you're carrying something you didn't pack yourself. Because in a way you are. We walk around with the emotional weight of lives that almost happened, careers that nearly started, people we almost became, futures that dissolved without asking to be remembered. And so many things we have lost, time and time again. And there's no ceremony for any of it. No marker that says this is the version that made it. No acknowledgement of the ones that didn't. They just linger as a kind of pressure, a quiet density behind the present moment. Sometimes it feels like memory. Sometimes it feels like regret. Most of the time, it doesn't have a name. It just feels like standing somewhere familiar, knowing something important used to be there. And maybe that's why the present can feel so strangely crowded. Not because there's too much happening, but because there's too much that never did. We aren't haunted by the past we lived. We're haunted by the pasts that were never allowed to finish existing. And maybe that's what gives the present its strange weight. Not purpose, not meaning. Aftermath. What's strange about all of this is how undramatic it feels. There's no moment of panic, no breaking point, no sense that something has gone catastrophically wrong. And yet, something feels off. Not missing in a way you can point to, missing in a way that only shows up when everything else goes quiet. The world still works, you still show up, you still do what's expected of you, which almost makes it worse. Because if something were broken, at least there would be a shape to it, a problem to name, a direction to face. But this doesn't announce itself, it doesn't interrupt the day, it just hums underneath it, a low, constant awareness that whatever you're standing in right now wasn't exactly chosen. And that realization doesn't feel tragic, it feels disorienting. Like noticing the room has been rearranged while you were asleep, and everyone else is acting like it's always looked this way. You start to wonder if this is what awareness actually is. Not clarity, not answers, just vertigo. The sense that the more closely you look at your own life, the less solid it feels. That meaning doesn't disappear, but it refuses to sit still long enough to be explained. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Not that we don't know who we are, but that knowing was never really the point. That consciousness isn't a map, it's a condition. You become aware, not to understand, but simply to notice that you're here, standing in the aftermath, living as the version that remained. And nothing about that feels resolved. There's a song I always go back to when I try to make sense of this feeling. Not because it explains anything, but because it doesn't try to. Ordinary World by Duran Duran isn't about the moment something breaks, it's about what comes after. After the self you were stops existing. After the versions fall away. After the realization that whatever you were moving toward didn't arrive the way you expected. The song doesn't ask how it happened, it doesn't rewind the tape. It just stands in the aftermath and says, "This is where I am now." And that's what makes it honest. Because the hardest part of becoming someone isn't the transformation, it's learning how to live as them afterward, in a world that looks the same, sounds the same, expects the same things from you. There's something quietly devastating about that idea, that after all the internal erosion, all the unrealized versions, all the identities that never finished existing, the world doesn't change to match it. You still wake up, you still move through the day, you still answer to your name. And somehow, that's where meaning has to live now. Not in revelation, not in becoming, but in continuing. Maybe that's why the song feels less like nostalgia and more like recognition. It understands that awareness doesn't arrive with answers, it arrives with responsibility, to keep going, to live as the person who remained, to navigate while carrying everything that didn't survive into the future you had hoped for. I don't remember becoming this person, but I recognize the feeling of standing here, still moving, still answering, trying to live through what remains, in this ordinary world. Please check out your favourite bookstores worldwide for my book, The Zephyrus Chronicles Rebirth. The highly anticipated sequel, Cantera, is hitting shelves next month. This is Z and Cruz reminding you to stay close to the echo. Bye for now.